You're tuning in to Geek Speak, a Geek Insider production. We're sitting with special guests in entertainment, news, and tech. So sit back and enjoy the show as we geek out together right now. Well, good evening, everybody. It is Monday night. You know what that means. It's Geek Speak. And tonight we have two special guests. KA-BLAM!
KA-BLAM! Boom!
Gregory. And I will drop this card here because, you know, we're prepared like that. And we've got our co-chair here, C. Michael Lanning. I'm Meredith Logren. Hello. Hey, guys. How are you tonight?
I'm doing fabulous. How about y'all?
Very glad to have you here. Now,
Thanks for having us.
I'm going to pass the mic over to you. And
all right.
Yeah, let's do
this. You guys
thing.
are in the same room. You can actually just pass the mic.
Yeah. Look, she's in Florida. I'm in Louisiana. It's not a
like virtual.
Well, we're in Florida too, so she could just come. Yeah. We should have just met.
Yeah, there you go.
I could. You know what? Maybe soon, because I think that there are plenty of Florida events that are coming up. So I'll get a chance to sit with you guys and rub elbows.
I'll tell you what. Let's get them a chance to go ahead and introduce themselves to kind of let us know who they are in a roundabout, and then we can talk to them a little bit deeper about who they are.
Should we put them on the big screen, see?
Let's do it, you know?
All right. You know what? We're going to, because Barry's being so quiet, we're just going to put him first. There you go.
Oh, poor old Barry.
So tell us who you are, Barry.
My name's Barry Gregory. I've been working in comics pretty much nonstop since the early 90s. Sold my first couple of scripts while I was still in college and never looked back. We formed KA-BLAM in 2005, and that's kept us hopping ever since.
Right. Awesome. And let's get Tommy up here.
Thomas Florimonte Jr. I've also been in creating comics since the early 90s. Actually, Barry and I pretty much been kind of together. Well, not together, but you know what I'm saying. We've been doing comics all the same time, working on a lot of the same books. I've done stuff for Marvel and the Ultraverse stuff for Malibu, and a lot of creator-owned stuff. I've worked for a lot of different publishers in the past. Do my own creator-owned books under the Inferno Studios banner. But like Barry said, that a few years back we started KA-BLAM digital printing, and so we're still doing comics. So we still create stuff. Barry's puts together his own books under the Gallant Gallant Comics, and I help out from time to time doing inks and stuff like that. But yeah, we've been doing stuff, and I'm inking a bunch of stuff for Silverline right now, including some stuff from Mr. C. Michael. I don't know if we know who C. Michael is, but one of his books I'm actually inking, and we've been pretty busy. Yeah, been busy for a long while.
Awesome.
Right. So I thought maybe we could go ahead and talk about, since they're such big comic guys and they were there in the 90s and earlier, we kind of ask them their origin story. What is your secret origin story? How did you become interested in comics? Either one. Barry, you want to?
Sure.
I know Tommy, so.
I was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. I had an older cousin who read comics, and he would, after he read them, he was done with them, and so he would give them to me. And they were my treasures. I wasn't about to share them with anybody else. And I remember I read Jim Starlin's run on Captain Marvel when I was probably 7 years old, maybe 6 years old, and I was never the same. It was over for me at that point. So.
Okay. So where are you from exactly?
I grew up in Mississippi.
Mississippi, okay.
I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
And you
And you
wound
have
up
another-
in the swamps of Florida.
You're still in the South. It's okay.
Oh,
Tell
this
me,
isn't the South.
what was your origin story? Like, when did comics kind of first enter into your world, Thomas?
For me, early, it's kind of, it's the same. I think all of our stories are basically the same. I remember, for some reason, just falling in love with Spider-Man when I was little. I used to get some comics at the local drugstore, that kind of stuff, and I just remember seeing Spider-Man on. You guys, you may not, and I know Mr. way older than Mr. Michael there, Mr. C. Michael. The Electric Company. Do you guys remember that?
Oh,
That's your,
yeah, I grew
yeah,
up with that. Yeah.
yeah, they had Spider-Man running around, a live action Spider-Man running around when I was a little kid, and I've always been in love with Spider-Man. He's always been my favorite, and finally when I got to work on some Spider-Man stuff, that was really cool. So
Was it always comics, or was this kind of like a plan B? And we'll get to KA-BLAM in a minute, because that's not something that most people dive into and say, "Hey, I want to be a printer," or anything like that. But I mean, was comics always like plan A? Was that something that you always knew that you wanted to do?
No.
you mean now or then?
Comics were always there, but they were never part of my plan. I studied English in college, was minoring in playwriting, and I was going to be a writer. That was what I always wanted to do. And
You're still a writer.
My segue was into comics was because of that. I wrote a few short comic scripts that I sold to Malibu Comics, who at the time they were the number 3 publisher in the country back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I sold a few short scripts to them, and never looked back. I didn't intend to make a career out of comics. It just
if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you when you kind of segued into comics then? And I'm leading up to something else
I was in my early 20s when I sold those scripts, and then started getting a few freelance jobs after that, and then Thomas and I met when I was maybe 25, something like that, and we ended up getting a studio with he and my wife and a couple of other friends had a studio down the hall, and we were making comics. That it wasn't part of the plan; it just happened.
Tell me about you. When did you kind of decide that this was the pathway that you were going to go in?
I've always loved comics, loved the art form, all that kind of good stuff. But no, actually, I went to college for computer science. I wanted to be a game designer, is what, and it just so happened while my last year or so of school, or no, it was a couple of years. I guess it was, I don't know. I don't remember. That's a long time ago.
One of those years.
Yeah, one of those years. Yeah. Somebody that we know, Stephen Butler and Roland Mann were in Mitch Bird, were the original Silverline guys. They were basically going to school at the same time I was going to school. They were a few years older. They're they were Barry's a couple of maybe a year or two older than me. I think he's more. Don't tell him I said that. But he's a couple of years old. But no, I just started seeing that they were, breaking into the comics business. And, I always could draw. I never took any classes or anything. I mean, I was really bad back then, but, I got better. But so I just saw them. I was always wondered who was making these comics, and then I saw these guys in the dorm, and I'm like, those guys are making those, and I'm like, yeah. I could be that guy too, maybe. And then so I took a little time to try to figure out if I could, do it. And with Roland and Stephen and Mitch's help and stuff, and Barry's encouragement and everybody that we were friends with at the time, I was able to break in. They helped me get in. So I actually started getting work when I was 23, I think 22, 23. I was, it may have been 21, 22, but I actually quit my other jobs and started doing comics full time when I was 23, I think it was.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
now I'm a newbie. I'm kind of in my first year, and I have no problem telling people that I am 49. I'm going to be 50 this year, working on my first comic, and I finally figured out what I want to do when I grow up.
Make
That's kind of like,
comics.
but I am so, in a way, for me, my own pathway, I'm so glad that I waited until I had that experience behind me, not so much in comic books, but writing prose, and I worked in newspapers and stuff. So I kind of get the idea of layout and things like that. But putting it all together, I mean, anybody who comes at this and says comic books is easy needs to get their head examined, because it's really not. And with all the history and everything.
Comics have a language all their own, and there's, that's hard for somebody who isn't steeped in it to really understand. The shape of a balloon can change the meaning of the words inside it. The shape of a panel can change the meaning of the action inside it. And if you're not steeped in that, there's a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, Meredith's learning that right now, especially with lettering. I'm just watching her, so I don't have much to say about that. But yeah, it definitely, even with the images and the size of your boxes and the way that you fit them on a page is definitely something.
And the layouts.
Different.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, always. So, but
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead, see.
No,
I
I was
didn't want
just
to
going to
step
get
on.
into, because I know some of their influences. I've read some of Barry had an interview, and he was talking about you were kind of into Bronze Age comics. Is that right?
Oh yeah, very much so.
You tell us.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
who were
Tell
your
us how that
influences
listed.
and stuff like that? Yeah.
Well, everybody's golden age is the point at which they fell in love with comics. So for me, it was the comics of the mid 1970s. Nothing will ever be as good as that, because that's those are the books that I fell in love with. So artists like George Perez and John Byrne and those guys that it's in my blood.
Right.
Writers like Jim Starlin and Don McGregor and Jim Shooter and Tony Isabella, that those are my influences.
And that kind of led you to give way to create Gallant, huh?
Gallant was Gallant started about 10 years or so ago. Stephen Butler, the Thomas mentioned earlier, an old friend of ours, ended up staying in my home for a week or two one summer, and he and I had a lot of chance to talk comics, and we grew up a few dozen miles away from each other. We're born within a couple of weeks of each other, and we have all the same influences. And so as we were kicking around the things that we love to do, we decided to have our midlife crises together, and started a comic book that was a love letter to everything that we grew up reading, and Gallant kind of came out of it.
And you said that you tried to make it. Yeah, you're saying you're trying to make it not seem like a satire, but actually like a Bronze Age comic. Did you find that hard to do, or
if you try to write the way that writers wrote comics in the 70s, it almost always comes off as parody. Even if you're being really earnest about it, it still comes off as parody, just because the way the books have evolved. Now, my friend Christopher Mills has a publishing line called Atomic Action, and he's really good at doing 70s style comics, completely earnest, and they don't read as satire. I'm not. I'm not good at that. Mine, when I try to do a 70s comic, it comes off as satire, and that was the last thing I wanted. So what I tried to do with Gallant was to make them resonate 70s comics without actually aping the way that they wrote comics in the 70s.
Okay, so kind of a modern day spin on.
It's trying to capture the spirit of the comics of the 70s without actually doing a comic that feels like it's set in the 70s. So it's about getting a certain level of action and adventure and romance and mystery and all that we really don't do much in comics anymore. Comics now are pretty much straightforward. Even superhero comics are pretty much either science fiction or horror or fantasy. There's not a whole lot of mystery and romance and action adventure in them anymore. And so that was what I was trying to do with Gallant was do contemporary comics that would make you think about Bronze Age comics when you read them.
Okay. So, and you kind of the characters that you use, I saw some of them were like based on. I think was it Funny Man was kind of based on a Joe Siegel and.
Yeah, Funny Man was actually created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. It was their big follow up to Superman. And it kind of went over like a lead balloon in the 50s. I think they got 4 issues out of it, maybe 5. But it's a great character, and it's in the public domain, and no one was doing anything with it. So I thought I would kind of do an ultimate version of him. Reinvent him, retell his origin story, that kind of thing.
That's some fantastic artwork in that. It's great.
Yeah, Luis Rivera did the artwork in Funny Man. He did a terrific job.
Looks real good. And Tommy does his own books also, if you can see behind him. And it's got Zomboy. Tell us a little bit about Zomboy.
Well, all of the characters in my Kid Hero universe is versions of friends of mine. Barry's in my book. My wife's in my book. Actually, this is kind of a little cartoony version of my wife. Our puppies and stuff, all of our animals. Even though Zomboy doesn't look like me, he's supposed to be more of me. But everybody in the everybody's it's kind of a Calvin and Hobbes kind of a ripoff kind of a thing. So we're basically where it's all the kids are in first grade. They're all like 6 or 7. And when they go into their imaginary world, they're superheroes. They're there's good guys and bad guys, and then the other kids are, stuff that's happening to them. But it all takes place in their imagination. So the books end up. I always kind of drop little hints in there. Like all of a sudden, they'll be in a big fight in a superhero fight, and then your typical superhero fight, and then all of a sudden you'll see like a big word balloon, like Tommy, because my character's name is Tommy, of course, because it's me. And then you say, Tommy, get off the desk, and then all of a sudden, I'll be in Zomboy will be in a fight pose, and then all of a sudden it'll snap back, and they're in a classroom, and he's standing on the desk in the same pose, kind of a thing. And then and it's just all, but it takes place in they're like. Yeah, I don't guess it's politically correct anymore to say, but it's when you play cowboys and Indians, that kind of stuff when you're a little kid, it's that kind of thing. So when everybody's in the kid hero, kid villain universe, they're all in it, and they're all playing in their own little parts. And there's some good guys, and like I said, some bad guys. But so they're. So it's just, and they're all based off of people I know. So eventually, Mr. C. Michael, if you might end up in the book. I don't know if but don't be mad if you become a bad guy in the book. Somebody's got to be a bad. I've had a couple of friends that are kind of upset with me because I made them bad guys, and they go, "You really think I'm a bad guy?" And I'm like, somebody's got to be the bad guy.
Hey,
If you got,
sometimes the best part's the villain. Come on,
yeah,
so
yeah. If you want to be in the book,
I'll be upset if you don't make me a villain. How's that?
you got to be, yeah. So yeah, so everybody that's in the books are friends. I like to include people that I know in the book. It makes it fun for them, that way. That way they can sell copies to their family because they can go, look, I'm in the book. See,
see, that's brilliant marketing.
this is just between us four, right? There's
Right.
nobody
Oh,
else.
yeah.
Okay.
We won't tell anybody.
All right, don't tell anybody that's what I'm doing this whole time. But
so now, tell me about this partnership with KA-BLAM, because it's been a while. I mean, you guys have been around for a while. I get comic books and I see KA-BLAM on it and all that good stuff. I know that it's going to be good materials and things like that, but the partnerships are not easy, and it seems that you guys have lasted more, longer than some marriages. So
I've lost to hear anything.
Barry, I hear. We're going to tell
sorry,
him.
I couldn't hear anything you were saying there. Sorry.
Oh, can you hear us okay now?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah, so I was saying, like, with the KA-BLAM, the partnership and everything, it's not easy to have a partnership. And since you guys have been around longer than some marriages, I mean, what is that like?
well, I mean, I'll let Barry say while we're not married, Barry and I, both Barry and I have been in marriages for a long time. I'm going on 30 some odd years. Barry is also. So we just get along. We like to do the same stuff. I mean, we get in arguments and, I'm going to go in the other room and then Barry's like, all right, Thomas, he's a butthead and going, but yeah, it's, what do you think, Barry?
There's a pretty clearly defined division of labor too. I mean, there's things he does that I just can't do, and those are his responsibility, and we both kind of knew that from the beginning. There are things that I've strong suits of mine that I take care of, and then there are things that he handles, and we come to work today, for example. We came to work and there was no game plan. He knew what he needed to get done that day. I knew what I needed to get done that day, and that's most days. Very very seldom do we come in and say, okay, today what we have to do is this, and I need you to do this, and I'm gonna. No, we just kind of fall into it. Yeah,
and we've been buddies for such a long time. It's like, we don't agree upon everything, but we agree upon most things. So, and I love you, Barry.
Oh.
Aw.
Let me ask, what was the seed? What was the fruition of this? Did y'all get some self-published printed books and like, man, these suck. We could do better than this. Let's make a printing company. What was the?
Oh, that's a good story.
Yeah. Actually, I was an editor at a comic company before I moved to Florida, and I had looked in a little bit into digital printing as a way to produce some of our lower selling titles, and this was in the late 90s. The technology just wasn't quite there yet. It could be done, but it couldn't be done well, and so. When Thomas and I started up doing some of our comics again, I took a few years off from comics, but around 2004, 2003, 2004, we were both experimenting a little bit with doing some comics again, and I had placed an order with a company for a comic I had done, and
it was a convention you and I were going to.
I had a big convention coming up. And they missed my date. They didn't deliver the books to me, and so I had a table and nothing to sell at the show. So,
and they shipped my books, but Barry didn't get his, and the whole time we're like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So
man.
at that point, we really started kicking around seriously the idea of, you know, do we need them? You know, can we do this ourselves? You know, I knew a little bit about the technology. Thomas had been running a newspaper, so he knew production really well, and I knew editorial. He knew production. Uh, so we versed ourselves a little bit in the technology. We decided that maybe it was ready. Maybe we could do it. The initial plan was just to lease a machine and just print our own books and maybe, you know, books for a couple of friends, and we weren't really planning to start a business. But as we looked into the technology, and as we you know, with the we did a lot of investigating machines, and went to see a lot of things in production, and
well, I mean, it
became
had to look
convinced.
like comics. You know,
Yeah,
we knew that
became
was the number
convinced that
one thing.
the only way to do this the way we really and get the product that we really wanted was to go with some high-end machines. And going with high-end machines meant that we were going to have to make some money at this. That we, you know, this couldn't be
it couldn't just be us. Yeah.
So we worked out a business plan. I put $50,000 on credit cards and to get some startup capital, and
we moved into one of my
machine,
spare rooms,
you know,
in my house.
Really?
Yeah. We
Oh, wow.
started out in his house. Yeah, we were there for a few months before we moved into an office.
Yeah, my wife said, "You get your printer, get the stinky toner, get the paper, get it out of my house." And so we found his money.
That's called aggressive expansion. That's
Yeah.
No, but that's what it took. You know, it really, we needed to see if that it would work. We realized that it would work, and then we're like, well, not only are we going to get a bigger place, let's try to get 2 machines instead of 1. And the company that we were leasing the printers from, they were really, when we told them what we were doing, they're like, what do you guys want to do? We're like, we're going to print comic books. And we're like, with these machines? And we're like, yeah, we can do this. We knew, we did our research, like Barry was saying, and we figured out what paper we need. Just like we were saying, that they had to look like comics. They couldn't look like something that you'd get at Kinko's, or not that those are bad. I'm not talking about anybody else's stuff, but you know, some of the other print on demand stuff.
Mini comics. We wanted comics.
Yeah, we wanted to be able to sit that book right next to a Marvel book, you know, Marvel DC Image book, and you wouldn't be able to tell that it was a print-on-demand book rather than a full press Heidelberg machine, you know, web press book. It needed to look like a comic book. It needed to feel like a comic.
Yeah, I've got right here. I've got one, and just the feeling of it. I'm telling you, you couldn't tell. This is self-published.
No, I mean, and since we've started, you know, we've actually had to change our paper stock because those guys have actually gone down in paper grade. If you've noticed that your Marvel and DC books and your Image books, they, you know, a lot of the books don't have cover stock anymore. They're all just interior paper stock. I mean, a lot of them do, but a lot of them are just the same paper all the way through. So, you know, we've had to get new machines. You know, of course, you know, the machines, they wear out. You have to upgrade, and the leases and all that kind of good stuff. So we've had to change paper stock, but that was our number one goal, was they had to look like comic books. You couldn't, you know, you didn't want somebody to pick up the book and go, well, this looks like, you know, something else. It had to look like a comic book.
Now, let me ask you, because it is not easy balancing a business and then still try to crank out material. How do you guys balance that and still have a home life?
I don't have kids.
Yeah, is that doable?
Well, my kids are grown, so they're you know, making comics at 50. So
no, back before I moved to Florida, and we started up all this kind of stuff. Before I worked at Disney a little bit and all that kind of stuff. You know, when I was working freelance, you know, I could do 2 or 3 books a month with my own stuff. I'm just inking, you know, not the whole not everything, not writing, penciling, inking, coloring. I was able to ink 2 or 3 books a month, and I was doing that for a good bit of time. But now, since we and continued, and I did some Zomboid books back then, and did a bunch of little side projects for a bunch of friends and all that kind of stuff back in the day, as you'd want to call it. But since we've started KA-BLAM, I've got 5 or 6 books, and we've been doing this now for, when did we start KA-BLAM, Barry? It was
we started in 2005. We didn't start taking orders until 2006.
Yeah, and so I've not done
15 years
much.
for small business. That's pretty outstanding.
Well, yeah, it's
we were 5 or 6 years in before I actually took advantage of the service myself. I went the first 5 or 6 years without printing a comic book of my own. So
yeah, we were just doing other people's, and still working our other Disney jobs. We used to work out at Disney doing caricatures and that kind of stuff, and then started doing KA-BLAM.
And with KA-BLAM, y'all don't just offer now. I was reading today, y'all kind of offer something to do with Kickstarting and shipping and everything. Could you explain how that works?
Yeah, we do Kickstarter and Indiegogo and Patreon fulfillment. We're doing it every day. So if someone runs a Kickstarter campaign, it's successful, now they got to get their book printed and they got to ship it to a few hundred people. Well, we can print it for you and ship it for you, and you never actually have to deal with anything. You just give us a spreadsheet with the names and addresses of the people that get books and what they get, and we handle that all in house. We're doing that every day.
Yeah, that's kind of unique. You don't see too many printers doing that, huh?
Well, it's something that we had the infrastructure to do already, because we've been running a sister site called Indie Planet. We've been running that since around 2008 or 2009. So we're sending out one-off comics every day through Indie Planet. So it was really pretty easy to scale that up. To do Kickstarter and other crowdfunding fulfillment as well.
So now I've seen over at your website that you also do graphic novels, you do magazines and things like that. What was the decision to kind of expand into that and not exclusively comic books?
Well, it's mostly comic books. I mean, that's we've done a lot of other things, but we used to say early on that we're not a printing company, we're a comics company. Printing is a means to an end, and so we do print some prose books. We've printed some city guides and things like that, but it's all
some phone books a couple of times.
Yeah, it's all come from comic book people who who needed something else done. We've never gone out and tried to find print work outside of comics. It's just I'm not interested.
Yeah,
I'm
print
a comics guy.
Yeah, we print comics. We've set up the pricing and all of the templates and everything that makes it easy for you guys to get your books printed. Even with the paper that we use, we don't have a ton of different paper to print on. We have a few stocks.
That's by design. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're not a printer. We are a printer, but we're a comic book only printer. If somebody needs something printed, then if it'll fit within our templates or whatever, say sure, yeah. But if they want like a I don't know, some 15-fold cover kind of thing, say, well, we don't do that, kind of craziness stuff.
That's smart, because then you don't have to worry about the overhead of so many different paper stocks and sizes
and all the different equipment.
Exactly.
Yeah, and all the different equipment that we don't need to have, because it's very specific what we're doing. And lately the machines that we're leasing now, we should have been doing this from the beginning. We can print on metallic paper and transparencies and all that kind of stuff, which it's gone over really, really well. We've had these new machines now for a couple of years that could do this, and because of because of the plague, because of COVID, we've been able to
Mhm.
experiment a little bit with some of the stuff that we could do, and it's just beautiful. Some of these crazy covers that we can print on this metallic paper, and so yeah.
Very
But
cool.
you know, we try not to go crazy with all the different kinds of like people keep asking us about um, newsprint paper and stuff, and our machines, you can't run newsprint through it, or can you? I don't think you can.
We could, but why would we want to? It's terrible.
No, yeah, it looks like poop.
I love my newsprint comics that I grew up with.
Sure.
I love that smell they have, but that smell is them decaying.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
That's what causes that smell.
That's
is they're
mold,
rotting.
right?
It's terrible, terrible paper. So, yeah, we get asked about newsprint all the time, and that's always our response: is no, it's awful paper.
We've had a couple of people kind of simulate newsprint by taking all their stuff and making everywhere there's white, they'll kind of make it brownish
Yeah, you can
color.
use,
You know, make it.
you can use textures to simulate the look
Yeah.
of it. Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're at the 36-minute mark. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be right back. For anybody who's tuning in, we are with our special guests, Tommy Florimonte and Barry Gregory from KA-BLAM. We'll be right back after this.
Check it out. MobileEdge.com has award-winning products with innovative features and contemporary, edgy designs that empower you to look sharp and travel smart with your mobile tech. Your beloved, not to mention expensive gaming gear and mobile tech devices are an extension of you, so give them the protection and style they deserve wherever you go. Find them at MobileEdge.com and protect your tech with Mobile Edge. Bring it on. Hey Geek Insiders, Mobile Edge has a special coupon code for our dedicated listeners. Get 25% off your Mobile Edge gear using coupon code GEEK25. That's GEEK25. Geek out.
All right, and we're back. Thank you for tuning in to Geek Speak Through Geek Insider. We've got a special guest, Tommy Florimonte and Barry Gregory from KA-BLAM. And if you were watching this on YouTube and you were looking at the Mobile Edge gear, that coupon code GEEK25 is still good through 2021. So ignore the expiration date on that. It's still good to go. And here we go. Welcome back, everybody.
Hello.
Right. So y'all mentioned Indie Planet. What led to y'all kind of having this online digital database of all the stuff that you've done? When did y'all start Indie Planet?
Well, that was really part of the plan all along. We just we didn't want to roll it out at the beginning because we frankly didn't have enough to go there. So we spent a year or two kind of planning it out, and then once we had enough users at KA-BLAM and had enough people that were willing to to list their books there for sale, we rolled it out at around, I think it was around 2008 or 2009. And presently, I think there's about 7,500 comics there, or something like that now.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Yep. Well, the thing is, the way that we have KA-BLAM set up is that anytime a creator that's placed an order, we store, of course, with their permission, we store their files so that way they can make reorders where everything from day one we have stuff. You should see this big RAID backup system that we have, and so we were just thinking, we can print these books at Indie Planet. Just got permission from the people. They filled out a questionnaire, answered a couple of things, how much they wanted to charge. Then we've got all of the files from day one. That's a lot of files.
Yeah. In fact, I saw there was one on there. I cannot remember the name of it right now, but it's a Netflix show now, and I could see that Raising Isaiah.
Raising
Dion.
Raising
Thank
Dion.
you. Yeah, you can actually still order the number one issue of that.
Yep.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's always
We
sold,
still get.
Yeah, it's sold consistently well from the time it went up there. So
Yeah, we still get. I don't know if it's a dozen a week, but there's still a good, 5, 6, 7 copies a week, pretty much.
and
Maybe
it's
somewhere,
yeah, and
some less, some
it's
more.
been many years since he put it up there.
Yeah.
I dare say he's probably done a lot better at Indie Planet than that book would have done in the direct market, because in the direct market it would have come out one month and it would have disappeared the next. And in Indie Planet he's sold consistently for years and years.
Yep.
Yeah, because y'all kind of recycle things and y'all kind of put them back up there for people to see every once in a while.
We try to keep the pot stirred a little bit at Indie Planet, because there's a lot of really, really good stuff, and we've only got so much room on the front page. So new books come up and they cycle off the front page in a matter of, days or a week or so. So we try to keep things stirred up a little bit and bring things back to the front so that they're not forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this,
Yeah, Barry's putting up new books practically every day. He's putting up new books.
So now, how do people get in touch with you, or how do they find out about the new books and stuff? Do you have a mailing list? Is it a weekly thing, a monthly thing, a newsletter?
Oh,
sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
If there were more of us, that would be a really, really good thing to do. It's an hours in the day problem. No, we do some mailings but it's mostly the users themselves, the vendors, the publishers and creators who have books at Indie Planet, promoting their own work, and that brings new eyeballs to the site, and then those people come to the site and find other things they like, and that's mostly how we get people to the site.
So now I had a question with 2021, and as you said, the plague. I've seen a huge uptick in a lot of independent creators putting their head down and getting to work, making books and stuff like that. So I suspect, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, was this better for business for you guys?
No.
Okay.
2020 was a terrible, terrible year.
Yes.
But we made it through it, and things really seem to be rebounding now, and knock on wood, that'll continue.
But most of the time when people get stuff printed at KA-BLAM, like we do all the Kickstarter crowdfunding stuff, but most of the stuff people get at KA-BLAM are to take to shows and that kind of conventions and that kind of stuff. And since there were no conventions after February for the most part of last year, and then of course the first couple of months thereafter, everybody was shut down, couldn't leave your house. We were still getting orders in, but Barry and I would kind of, we weren't essential workers, but we kind of fit in as long as you didn't have people coming to the office and that kind of, so we would run over to the office once or twice a week, and try to get some books out. But yeah, it's pretty much just, just.
Yeah, that's when you tell your wife, "I'm taking the bedroom again."
Yeah, that's right. moving everything back into the bedroom.
Well,
oh my goodness.
Conventions have always been a huge part of our business. Supplying people with conventions. So the loss of conventions hurt, and also, I tell people all the time that we're a company that exists on other people's expendable income.
Yep.
And so if you've got money to make comic books, you've got money to pay for comic book printing, then you're probably paying your rent and your grocery bill, and you're not having to choose. Well, last year a lot of people had to choose, and comic books lose when that choice is forced upon you.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. But Meredith?
I was actually kind of surprised because Kickstarter
Yeah, they did
had
really
one
well.
of its best years, and I figured, with fulfillment and things like that, it kind of kept the printers busy. I know that a few people that I had spoken to previously, they were like, yeah, we're doing this, we're keeping our pencils busy, we're kickstarting, and we're helping out our local comic shops, we're helping out our local printers and things like that. So I'm a little bit surprised that
You have to keep in mind too that there's often a lag between the time campaign finishes and the time a book actually goes to press. In some cases that can be months and months, and in some cases
right.
years. So so Kickstarter had a banner year last year, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every project was immediately print ready at the time the campaign ended. So
So now with I know that Florida, we're kind of opening up and things. We're seeing more and more events that are being scheduled. A lot of things are being scheduled on top of each other. So there's a bit of a conflict. How are you guys planning your calendar as far as maybe going to events or are people going to be able to meet up with you guys anywhere?
Well, if
hard to say.
keeping fingers crossed, both of us are scheduled to go to a show at the end of April.
May.
You are correct. It is May. Yeah, April is next month, isn't it? Right. Yeah. So May. Yeah, you're correct. And that's Pensacon and in Pensacola. But beyond that, there's a couple of local shows that I believe that we've talked about going to, that we've been invited to. So now that the vaccines are rolling out really good with everybody, or with us anyway, it's what's safe. What we feel safe. Regardless if it is safe or not, it's what it is if you feel safe.
Right.
And I see some shows that are going on now. It's like, I just don't know. I don't know. So we've tried to do our best to do the right thing up until now. I'd hate to mess around and get the COVID, by just messing around. So
yeah.
Well,
Right
I've seen
when we're
a
so
lot of the
close.
shows. They show because I've seen people live stream from there. We've seen Roland live stream from a couple of comic book stores and stuff. And everybody there in Florida seems to be wearing their masks pretty regularly. I'll give it that. So it looks like there's some people out there that are being safe.
So some shows yes, some shows not. It just depends on certain people. Well, I don't this get into that kind of. Let's not.
No, yeah,
go
I
into
get
that.
you.
Yeah.
It depends. Yeah.
No,
depends on that side
I've
of town,
done
right.
when the Silverline books that I did Trumps came out. I did a store signing, and I went and sat there for about an hour and a half, and wore my mask the entire time, and made sure I didn't shake anybody's hand or do anything, and did my little part. And then I got out of there. I felt it was a safe environment, but sticking around at this, now this was what 4 or 5 months ago, I guess 3 months ago. I wouldn't have gone to a show. We've been invited to a couple of shows where it was an all day kind of thing. And it's like, I don't know. I don't feel right yet, but I'm starting to feel right. So,
Yeah. I would say probably, maybe, was it a month ago? I don't quite remember when, but it was the D-Land Comics and Collectibles show, and I got to meet up with Roland Mann, and it was so funny because we were like, let's do a group shot because it was the end of the day, and everybody's like, masks or no masks, and we're like, no mask, just for the picture, and we were all like like that, and then it was over, and there was like, okay, and I think it's really nice that we're seeing the world opening up again, and hopefully this helps bring more people over to you guys at KA-BLAM, and get the printing and stuff done, because really the quality of paper and stuff, I mean, that had to be maybe a little bit of a learning curve for you guys too, just to say what works, what doesn't, and the best quality. So when it comes to somebody, let's just say a first time comic book creator is coming to you and they say, I mean, do you kind of give them some advice as to like the different types of quality paper and the cover options and things like that? I mean, how would a new comic book creator approach you guys for printing?
Well, we've got a lot of resources at the site. We've got our templates, which we really can't recommend you enough, highly enough that you use. Um, we joke sometimes that too many people don't understand the difference between manufacturing and magic. Printing is not magic. It's there's just a lot of math to it. You have to get your dimensions right, and you have to get your files have to be print ready, and being print ready means that they're done at the right sizes and the right dimensions, and that they're saved properly, and that they're compressed without using lossy compression, which will ruin your images. Uh, so all that stuff we try to cover that at the site. We've got a message center also. If you're not finding the information you need at the site, you can ask us and we'll tell you that. As far as paper stocks go, we really for the interiors we really only have two options, and that's coated and uncoated. That's glossy or matte. That's pretty much it, and that's by design, because we didn't want to, as you said, a lot of our users are novices. This is their first time doing it, and we don't want to overwhelm them with a lot of options. So it's do you want it glossy, or do you want it matte? Um, do you want a standard cover stock, or you want something a little thicker? You want cardstock? We can do that. We've got the specialty covers that Thomas was talking about earlier. Those are mostly for like for the crowdfunding people. A little
They want to do something a
you
little
can do
special.
as a premium item. Yeah. So yeah. So we tried to keep our barrier to entry as low as we possibly can, and part of that is really limiting the options and not confusing people with too many options.
And you can go to the site and order a print sample
Sure.
for free. Yeah, so we'll just mail you out if you want to see what the book looks like, what your book's going to feel like, the paper stock. We'll send you a
Yeah, we'll
copy.
send you a little pre-printed sample. We'll throw a free comic in there, and you can kind of see, uh,
Oh, cool.
what you're getting into.
So now, looking forward, maybe like the 5 or 10 year plan. I mean, where do you see KA-BLAM going in this time period?
Uh,
More presses, bigger building.
I hope not.
Retirement.
Yeah, that's my 10-year plan. No, I kind of like the size that we're at right now. I don't want to add a lot of presses. I don't want the headache of that. We've got two big presses right now, which we're running both of them most of the days, but we've got a little bit of redundancy if one goes down, which they do. Technical difficulties are a fact of life in the digital printing business. We've got some redundancy, so we're seldom ever completely down because we've got two presses.
We have a good relationship with the people
Yeah,
that lease the machines, so they know that they need to get over whenever
we
something goes wrong. Yeah.
we pay a lot of money every year for a service contract to make sure that if something goes wrong, we can make a phone call and get somebody over to work on the machines, because that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I expansion's not really in my plans. Thomas may disagree with me on that. I don't know. We haven't talked about it much, but I kind of like the size that we're at. You know, I'd like more business. We could handle higher volumes, but no, I don't want a building full of presses and
No.
So now we
Stay
are
small,
getting
stay
towards,
happy.
well, and keep it simple, right? The KISS theory. I'm all about the KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid. So we're getting towards the end of our hour, and at Geek Insider, we love to ask one final question.
Oh no!
So we're going to ask this to both of you. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
I really wish I would have. I love doing comics. I love creating stuff. As Barry, that's my thing. Is I like to create. If it's drawing or if it's building stuff. Like Christmas time, people call me over to put all of their tables and things. I like the creative thing, but I kind of wish that I would have stuck doing a little more of the computer science stuff. I really love the code. That's really fun. I don't get to do much, but I love comics. I love drawing comics. I love KA-BLAM. I love the industry. But I always was like, boy, I really had some games in me that I really wish I would have done. Just the coding part of it, because it's just the creation part. I just like to create. If like I said, if it's putting a bookshelf together or painting, I just but designing some games, that would have been fun.
I'm almost 50. I'm doing my first comic. There isn't any reason why you couldn't get back into coding. I'm just saying.
No, I'm still coding, but it's
all right. Awesome.
Yeah, but I meant more like games and stuff. That was my goal when I went to college, was to learn. Even though I'd already learned how to program and stuff before I went, but that was my goal, was to design games.
I gotta know what kind of games.
Anything, I don't care. Just fun stuff, fun games.
Barry, how about you? If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Talk less, listen more, write more.
Would you have would younger Barry have listened to older Barry, do you think?
No. He didn't listen to anybody else. There's no reason to believe he. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, is there anything else that
we got the comic bug is what happened, and then we
That's where I'm at right now, and I feel it. I feel it in my bones. This is what I want to be when I grow up. So we want to thank you so much for spending an hour with us. For anybody who's listening again, this is Geek Speak from Geek Insider. Make sure that you head over to the YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell if you want to know when we go live. Our special guests tonight are Tommy Florimonte and Barry Gregory from KA-BLAM. And if you check out the show descriptions, you're going to see the links to their site as well as their Facebook and Twitter. And is there anything else you guys want to share with us?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. And I want to know the name of your puppy that's back there in the background.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Chewy. And I'm like, she's squeaking and stuff like that. Yeah. There's a story behind that. Yeah, she was chewed on when she was a puppy, so she's my special needs dog, and we love pets over here. But thank you guys again for being with us, and we're gonna. You don't have to leave right away.
Whenever you want us back, just let us know.
Absolutely. And on that note, you guys, let me just put this up here. We've got a little bit of an outro, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
At Geek Insider, we foster relationships with those in the geek sphere so we can give our audience the insider view of entertainment, tech, and more.